Do you really love books, knowledge, and wisdom, and you feel like it might be tied to one of your spiritual gifts? Well, I'm going to share something that I found inside of my client's Akashic Records in case it unlocks and activates something for your journey as well. And remember to give a follow so you can stay up to date on more Akashic Records sessions. When I went into my client's energy field, I was transported to London. As I was walking through the streets, I asked her energy body, her astral body, to come and meet me. And I said, do you know where we're at? And she said, nope. I said, okay. I asked her higher self what time period it was, and she said 1897. And as we were walking together, we came upon this house, and she said, oh, this feels really familiar. And I said, okay, well, let's go inside. So we walked in, and there was all this floral wallpaper in this sitting room. And this woman walked out and she said, I have been expecting you. This happens quite often, actually. So I'll have the human here on this incarnation will book a session with me. However, sometimes their inner children or their different incarnations are the ones that actually pinged them to do that. So they already have foreknowledge that I will be in their fields at some point. The woman who had walked in the different incarnation of my client asked us if we would like to sit for tea. I said, absolutely. So we're sitting, and I said, this seems really familiar. And it's because I had done a different Akashic Record reading a couple years ago around the exact same time period, and so the houses looked very similar. And she said, oh, that's not surprising. There was a lot of magicians during this time period. I said, were there not in other places throughout history? And she said, no, it was just a very common terminology for who we are. And I said, well, who is that? She said, you know, people who are tapped in, but they've been called many other things: sorcerers, empresses, wizards. I asked her what her name was, and she said Shatrine. And I said, oh, like citrine, the crystal? She said, no, it's Shatrine. I was explaining why I was there to help my client with her spiritual gifts, and she said, you're gonna have to go to the House of Ruins for that information. Now, when she was referencing ruins, it's Celtic mythology. It's the alphabetical system that they use, and they're symbols of magic and energy healing. This reading doesn't have anything to do with Celtic history. There was a group of magicians and alchemists during that time period that had created this meeting place, and in reverence for magical things, called it the House of Ruins. And maybe there's a deeper meaning. I might dive into that later, but for the context. So we are going on a walk to get there, and when we do, we walk inside, and I notice it's this really big library. It's a private one that somebody owns and then changed it into a meeting place. There was a circle that was in the middle of the library, and it was kind of embossed into the floor, and her different incarnation asked her energy body, my clients, to go stand inside of the circle and close her eyes. When she did, she could see all of the books with her mind's eye. These blue symbols were coming up off of them, and inscriptions looking very much like light language. I said, oh, you can read the energetic signatures of books. Kind of like how I can read the aura of other persons with their trauma or their behavioral patterns or things going on with their spiritual gifts or soul mission. You do that with books, but with the information that is held within them. A couple of different ways that we can apply this is if you learn how to astral travel, you can actually go to different cosmic libraries throughout time and space. Of course, you can go to one here on Earth, but there's so many more that you have access to. You can also be a procurer of books. There's a lot of cosmic galactic beings that will barter with persons to get their hands on different books and scrolls and parchments and things of that nature so that they can have more information. And they'll often do energy exchanges with upgrades or activations, or telling you about their memories and experiences, or helping you navigate to different places through the ethers. I said, let's do an assessment on your gifts, because I feel like there's more here. I want you to close your eyes and energetically scan if there's any books on dragons in here. So she did, and she said no. And I said, okay. Now let's energetically scan if there is any history books on London. And when she did, she said, oh yeah, she held up her hand and she said, it's up there on the shelf. Okay, I want you to close your eyes again and hold out your hand, and I want you to call that book to your hand off of the shelf without actually walking over there. And when she did, the book flew out and she grabbed it. I said, oh, your gift also works like a magnet. The energetic encodements that are within that book, if they match your personal intentions of what you are seeking, you can call it off of shelves. That is going to be really useful for when she goes to cosmic libraries and they have these really high shelves, so that way she doesn't have to climb up there to grab them. I asked Shatrine if this extended beyond just books, and she said yes, it's anything with written text inside of it, so it can also be scrolls and parchments. I'm gonna get my notes. When she said this, I thought about Egypt, because pyramids are housers of a lot of knowledge and esoteric wisdom, and I said, oh, it'd be a really good idea if you work with Thoth. He is the god, the Egyptian god of writing, creator of languages, scribes, and interpreters. Now, obviously, he did not invent all of those. There's multitudes of archetypes throughout different types of mythos that are kind of guardians of things, but Thoth, for her, would match her energetic field. So I said, you know what? Let's go see Thoth right now. It's been a while since I've contacted him. And I asked Shatrine, her different incarnation, if she wanted to come with, because she had never astral traveled before. She was more utilizing her gift in her own timeline, in her 3D in the world, and not really traveling to other dimensional spaces. So she said, yes, absolutely, I would love to go. We met with Thoth. He was holding this monocle, or it looked like a monocle, it was looking at my client's energy body, and he said, oh, she's a keeper of schematics. Each written text has a life form, and a world is created within itself. You can see the blueprint of that world. You can tell when a book or a text is going to unlock something within another person. It is a key to their soul map. I said, well, what if they don't read the book or the text that she suggested? What then? He said, well, it'll eventually find them, either in that incarnation or a different one. Sometimes you're meant to plant the seeds, so that way when it is time for that person to read it, it will activate something, and then it will help them through their next chapter. Now, I do this a little bit where I have these certain books that have really helped me in my life. I will suggest them to certain people when I know they're at certain chapters, and whether they read it or not, like Thoth said, but they eventually will. That was kind of like me with The Alchemist. I kept hearing about it over and over and over again, but never picked it up, and then one day I came across it and I was like, it's time for me to read this. And when I did, it's really about the dark night of the soul, that book, and I was going through one myself, and oh my gosh, it unlocked so many things and helped me during that phase of my life. There's a couple different ways that this gift can be applied in this incarnation. So Thoth said that she can be a transcriptor, and that she would need to work on her clairtangency, clairsentience, clairaudience, and clairvoyance for this gift. Now, something that is really cool that you can do at the library or the bookstore, and it comes in handy. I can do this to a certain extent, not as much as somebody that has this gift specifically. But you go and stand in front of a bookshelf, and instead of touching all of them, what you do is you energetically read them instead. And then when you feel a ping, when you're scanning the shelf, you pick that book up and see if it's going to be in resonance. So instead of me looking through 50 of them, I can look through 3 or 4 of them and narrow it down a lot more quickly. Fun fact, I actually applied that when I went thrifting yesterday. Instead of touching all the clothes, I energetically scanned them as I was going through. Because if you are, we're getting off topic right now, but if you're psychic, sometimes thrift stores can be a little bit overwhelming because there's a lot of people in there, but also because all of the items are used, and so it's holding people's auric fields within them. And when you're touching all of them, especially if you have clairtangency, sometimes you're imbuing your own energy field with other people's. And so if we energetically scan instead and kind of just look at the patternings, it makes it a lot easier of a process. Okay? So I would recommend trying that next time you're at the bookstore or at the library or the thrift store if you want. And she would need to learn how to get into theta brainwave states. This is where you slow down in meditation so that you can reach deeper levels within the Akasha and the etheric realms, bypassing over your thoughts, feelings, and emotions in this incarnation, so you can be at a 0 point within yourself That way it's easier for you to traverse to where you're trying to get to. Looking at pictures of libraries before you go in to do these travels or meditation is going to be really beneficial, because it makes more tangible for your human psyche, and you have an anchor point within yourself. So you can go on Google or on Pinterest. You can look at libraries here on Earth, like actual libraries, or you can look at magical ones that people have created, because the ones that you can find throughout the cosmos look a lot different from the ones here on Earth. I asked Thoth if he had any other advice for my client, and he said, there are other transcribers like you and Shatrine. You need to put a call out into the ethers, and they can meet you either in this realm as humans or in other ones out in the astral fields. You also need to find the master key. And she said, what is that? He said, you hold it within yourself. He said that there are so many different ways that information can be encoded into books and parchments and scrolls. Some of them are in languages here on Earth. Other ones are written in light languages or symbols or ruins. There's so many different ways. It takes a lot of practice and time and energy to be able to read all of them. He said there is a certain level that you get to that unlocks when you are a transcriber, where you can read any and all texts. It's like a specific energy string that runs throughout all of them that has a commonality. It takes mastering the skill in order to read that energy cord that runs through them. And so again, it just takes a lot of time and practice to get to that level and unlock that master key. I'd love to hear in the comments if this unlocked and activated something for you. And if you have any questions, I would love to hear those as well. And I hope you have a super magical day.